All right, guys. So yeah, my goodness. Oh gosh.
Please refresh, guys.
All right. It's still not doing what it needs to do for TikTok. It's wanting me to go straight to. Let's see here. It's not letting me. It's not letting me stream to TikTok again. The hell.
Who's that Pokemon?
Gosh. Is it streaming to TikTok, Miss G? Do you see me live on TikTok? No. I don't think I'm live on TikTok.
No. Do you have TikTok on your OBS?
TikTok on my OBS. It is there. I thought it auto connects.
And can you see the live button?
What do you mean live button, Miss G? Wait, let me see here. Add output. Just a moment. It says TikTok output creation failed. It seems that you're not eligible to stream on TikTok. Please check your TikTok creator dashboard for more information. Oh.
If you click that, a box will come up where you put the stream info in.
No, well, yeah, it does put that, okay, and then when I hit start stream, it will say, "Oh, user has no live off
I
for
don't have my
TikTok."
PC set up, so can't even get a picture for you.
It's fine, Miss G. Oh, wait a minute. What is this? Wha- Please provide
Should be in the
information.
same place you see YouTube, I should imagine, in a box.
Yes, Miss G. Yes. I'm trying to add. I deleted TikTok and then I'm trying to re-add it. Let's see here. Oh my gosh.
Did you know that anatomically, most women don't need an unusual
No. Oh, okay. Sorry. Provide screenshots that confirm you are the account holder. What? Now it's asking me to provide a screenshot of my to prove that I am the account holder. I'm like, what the hell? Why do I still need to do that?
I didn't do that.
It's asking me to do that.
They had my link to my account, that's all.
Well, it's asking me for a screenshot now. You want to see it? Let me go to screen live so you guys can see it. See that? It's asking me for a screenshot. Provide screenshots to confirm you are the account holder. Upload up to 3 screenshots. Ah, my God.
That's really weird.
What is this like? They're up. Have they updated their?
Is that for Twitch?
Yeah, it's for Twitch. It says here, submit your application. Please provide information on your channel and prove your ownership to help us assess your application. We look forward to learning more about you as a creator. Blah blah blah. This is TikTok, okay? As you can see, TikTok. It's asking me to provide whatnot.
ZZ Muskaz. Welcome to my channel.
Save pictures. Save pictures. The hell. You'll receive the result within 3 business days. Bullshit. They're asking me for information about the main platform that I'm streaming from, that I'm streaming on. Hell. So you see this? Okay. See? User is ineligible for live streaming. User has no live auth. It's not working. That's what's doing. That's what it's doing. Canvas settings. What is this? It says it's connected, but it's
See
not
what
really.
happens in a few hours.
In a, it says 3 days, Ms. G. Ah, boy. Damn loud. Too loud. Alright, I'm gonna do some Japanese lessons, so be right back real quick.
Who's that Pokemon?
Alright, we're back. Ouch. Okay. I'm being covered by. You're not gonna see me! Anyway. That car has got to go. Alright. I can't even see, but anyway, let's see. Alright, so we're going. Oh, wait, you know what? Hello, sir. I want to sell you some gun. Mm. Okay, so I'm thinking the rest are. What do I call this? Yeah, the rest are. Oh, this goodness. Can I think about it? The rest are in the black market. The rest are sold at the black market. Yeah. Right, let's go to the black market now. Oh. Did I run it over? Let's see. Oh shit, I did! Oh my gosh.
Who's that Pokemon?
Might as well go to the Hunter Trader and drop off the harvests. Hmm. Come on. I know we got this. Gosh, the rubber banding really is so bad. Climb up. Oh my god. Oh, there were still some other guns. Shits. Okay, anyway. So having a bullet inside this gun makes all the other attachments go haywire, or out of their respective, locations once you log back in. Whoa, 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 whoa. The heli crash. And with the heli crash means I'm hoping the black market will buy all the other, all the like the regular guns, not just the black market ones. They should be able to. Yeah, that's loud. Oh yeah, baby. I'm pretty sure you guys can still hear me over the car sounds, right? Damn it. Okay, let's do.
Yeep here, U5.
Oh, okay. I see. So no need for me to. But you cannot hear the music over the. Or you can barely hear the music over the car. No? There you go.
Can't hear any music, no.
How about now? Pretty sure you can now.
Yeah, now it's good.
Can you hear my dog barking in the background as well?
Finally all moved in. Now titivating. Set up the PC, but gotta sort the TP-Link connection later.
No problem. My gosh, these seat chests. Oh.
Who's that Pokemon?
Basically, you only have like what, 10 minutes? Yeah, the other gens. Come on, Ronan. Get this. so it doesn't. Ah, okay. Yeah, this one. I have a battery. Oh fuck. Yep. It was even less than 5 minutes. How was that 10 minutes? Was that even 10 minutes? Did you guys count? No?
Probably about 10.
10? Ah. I wish they didn't just put it. I wish they didn't put a time limit on that because it just messes it up. Right, so once we get to the general trader, guys, I am going to have my dinner. Yep. Yeah, we can go straight. Gonna pass through Fort Hale. Oh shoot. Uh-oh. Shots fired. Woohoo! I don't have space for y'all. Wait a minute. Oh, wow. Really is a virtual garage. Huh. Didn't I buy a battery? What? Who is this? The Erican Goon.
TH3 Rickingoon. Thanks
The
for
Rick and
following.
Goon. Thanks for the follow. Welcome in, welcome in. Didn't I buy a battery? Oh, there it is. Yeah. Never dies. Car battery. Yeah, baby.
Who's that Pokemon?
we have a perpetual infinite battery source. Nice. Yeah, drift, baby.
TH3 Rickingoon. Welcome to my channel.
Welcome to the channel. Let's see, where are we now? All right, yeah. Limit point driving. Oh, something good is really cooking. Oh, now it looks shorter. Nice. Love it now. Almost a million. hell's this?
Who's that Pokemon?
Ready to play D&D solo? Yes, I already have Everweave. Oh yes, I want to play Everweave. Yes. Alright, let me try selling this back to the card trader. Oh, okay. You guys will... Uh-huh. Alright. Now... Yeah. Red Hood. Oh yeah. Next. Oh, it's still on? Oh my god. Alright guys, so I am going to take my dinner break. Alright. Alright guys, so let's go ahead and watch some YouTube. Let's see. Mm-hmm.
Ooh, what's for dins?
I'm not sure yet, but not sure yet. We'll be checking out the dining table, so yeah. But hope you enjoy this one. Let's see here. What's he talking about?
In
It
what
really
way?
is. In the sense that
I always thought fairies were fun little things until I started researching.
man.
Thought of that. That's true.
the sorts of food and parasocial relationship, I guess, things happening here. Either there was an international
You're right back,
civilization that was exchanging myths and legends at a level much deeper than we appreciate, or the collective unconscious is a thing,
Mm-hmm.
or people are describing objectively their interactions with the other world. Any three of those, which I think are kind of the only three options that I can figure out, any three of those blows apart your worldview. I said, this is really cool. Nick Redfern should write a book on that. And I sort of sat around and waited for Nick to write a book, because this was in the era when Nick was just pumping them out like every 6 months. I'm like, is it me? Like, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? So one summer I pulled all the resources together and wrote the book that became A Trojan Feast. And I don't know what I was thinking. I don't know what my wife was thinking, honestly. But I timed the release with my 2 weeks notice at the University of Georgia. And then it was a while of just playing gigs.
Well, how risky was
teaching.
that?
Well, my wife my wife worked for CDC. So we had a net, we had a safety net, but it was just, I mean, there were a lot of things that contributed to my alcoholism, but having 60 bosses in a university setting is one of them. So it was obviously unsustainable in that regard.
But being a musician author also sounds like a reason to drink to me.
Yeah,
Wow.
Well, I mean, you don't know. I mean, it's a musician author, but also like low brass players have a reputation for knocking them back too.
Oh, is that
it's
right?
like, yeah, so it's like I'm getting Scots. I'm Scottish too, so it's like I've got all the risk factors. I went to school in Wisconsin. I mean, like, you know, it's like I'm set up for failure in
Right,
terms of
right.
substance abuse. Anyway, so yeah, it was risky, but it was killing me. And so what I did was I pivoted and I built a pretty good little cottage industry of just gigging and teaching private lessons and doing a lot of like in-school clinics. And then we had our boys, and it became very apparent rather that I was spending all day out just to turn around and give money to someone to watch the kids. So I became Mr. Mom. That sort of brings us closer into 2020, when the Mr. Mom thing was kind of what was making me fall down that rabbit hole too.
Well, hang on a second. Music literature. So you're studying architecture, structure, motif, patterns. Is that informing your methodology with Trojan?
So you don't get out of 2 master's degrees without like kind of appreciating hunting down sources.
Sure.
That's the way I look at it, you know.
Your footnotes are ridiculous. It's half the book.
I got a new one coming out next month that's like 1,300 endnotes, and I feel like I've kind of undershot my goal. But yeah, I try to. Well, that's the problem. That has been historically the problem in this space, that people will just say stuff and not say where to find it. And I could do a little bit better job of pinpointing actual page numbers, but I have my reasons for not doing that.
Yeah, I have a lot
Kindle
of
has
thin
made it
books in here.
difficult to do that.
Yes.
But anyway, so that's part of it. You know, part of it is you do end up reading things like Adorno and philosophers of different types that make you think in different ways. That's part of it too. Although, you know what, AJ, it's really kind of wild. I look back on one of my earlier essays, and it was about taking a look at Strauss's Till Eulenspiegel, who was a trickster figure. And one of the books that I cracked open was Lewis Hyde's Trickster Makes This World, which is a book that I still use today. So, and like the trickster phenomena has influenced and informed so much of the way that I think about this stuff, that it's like, oh, were the seeds planted in that with that particular book? And it's probably the best bit of musical writing I've ever done. It's stuffed away in a binder somewhere, but yeah. So I think that all these things do sort of come together, and that's the thing. If you would go back 15 years and tell your younger self what you're doing today, you'd be like, what? Like, how did you get there? Why did you get there? You know, but you do kind of tend to get nudged in the right direction.
With the paranormal offering food, so that book comes out, and people in the space were saying, why didn't anyone think of this before?
It's kind of good that I had no idea what I was stepping into.
Yeah.
I had for whatever reason, I had a degree of familiarity with, or no, not a parasocial relationship, I guess, with Micah Hanks, because we both were from North Carolina, and I just sort of cold emailed Micah at one point and explained to him my project and like, do you know where I should shop this manuscript around?
And who's he?
Micah is a dear friend now. He just completed the audiobook of my novel, Them Old Ways Never Died, which should be coming out any day now. But he is a UFO researcher, Fortean par excellence, master of the endless comma, is sometimes what I say about Micah. But just a really sharp guy, very grounded. He runs the Debrief website.
Mm-hmm.
And Micah was just so warm and welcoming about it. And he not only, like, so he had me on his show, not even having this thing published, for whatever reason is beyond me. Somehow, I think he was really running with the Mysterious Universe guys at the time, and they had me on Mysterious Universe without having it published. I'm like, what is going on here?
Wow.
But with that sort of momentum, and again, just the grace of God, with that sort of momentum, it made Patrick Weege at Anomalous Books sort of take an interest in the manuscript. And Patrick's first thing was, like all book publishing house heads of those sort of things, was like, well, we reject most stuff that we get, but I'll take a look at it. And Patrick was over the moon about it. And I still have a great relationship with Patrick today. I don't publish with Anomalous anymore, but it has nothing to do with him as a person. He was just so supportive. And Patrick Weege, I read his books in middle school. Like, I've got his copy of his guide to, lake monsters and sea serpents that he did with Lauren Coleman. Like, and now he's my publisher.
How cool is that?
Yeah. And then there's a favorable review from Jerry Clark in Fortean Times, I think. And it was just one of these things where it's like, what world have I stepped into? And now if I look at the contact list on my cell phone, it's like, what is, I'm so blessed and so happy, because it does feel like the kid who, ends up shooting hoops in his neighborhood and is playing with, Michael Jordan or something. It's the way it feels sometimes.
Can you give us some examples of the exchange of food? Because I hadn't heard that with abductees.
Well, that was sort of one of the things that I think people were overlooking. So one of my central contentions is that this phenomenon is everything and nothing at once, right? It wears a lot of different masks. My favorite depiction of the phenomenon is that reissue of Passport to Magonia, where it's got this...
His valet?
Yeah, it's from, I believe it's Daily Grail Publishing. They've got a gray alien holding a fairy mask and a demon mask and a 50s sci-fi alien mask. The actual original painting showed that the gray alien itself was a puppet being puppeteered out of the frame, which is like the perfect summation of the phenomenon. Like, there's something there, but it's always changing and adapting and adopting. So Valet had already made a lot of pointed comparisons to older European spirit belief in general, fairy belief more specifically, in Passport to Magonia. It's like a foundational text for everything that I've done. And one of the things that you look at when you look at a lot of fairy folklore, and again, we know this mostly from Western Europe, but I can provide examples from pretty much every inhabited continent, is that if you go into fairyland and you are given something to eat or drink, you got to refuse it because you're going to be stuck there. At the time, I didn't know that this was a more pervasive myth. You'll find it in Oceania regarding the dead, the land of the dead, similarly in South America. But like whenever you're in that other space, you don't eat and don't drink. And so if Vallet's comparisons between fairies and UFOs holds true, then do we see this sort of food taboo from fairy folklore manifesting itself in the UFO context? And you kind of do. The point that I tried to make in that first book was that a lot of these encounters are relatively brief. Like, you're being very hospitable with a nice spread out there. But I'm not sure that would have been necessary for an abduction or for a contactee, 2 or 3 hour meeting. But food and drink did get exchanged in these stories. They get exchanged in alien abduction accounts as well.
What kind of food?
Well, let me sort of put a pin in this other thought. They get exchanged in the abduction stuff as well, but they've also kind of changed, right? We're talking about how the phenomenon changes and how it adapts. I think an argument could be made that, injections and ointments and pills and things that feature all across abductions are sort of a variation on that.
That's true. I hadn't thought of that. That's true.
The sorts of food and drink that get exchanged roughly correspond to the character of the experiences, right? So contactees of the 1950s and 60s, people who met with space brothers voluntarily, those are voluntary, pleasant experiences. And the alien abductions, especially the 70s and 80s, again, the phenomenon's changing. We can talk about that if we want to. Non-voluntary, non-consensual, unpleasant. And so the sort of food that you see in these experiences oftentimes aligns with that. You'll get references to milk and fruits in a lot of the contactee experiences, and you'll get references to, again, ointments and nasty tasting liquids. Obviously, these people came back, unlike in the fairy folklore. They consumed in the other world, but they were able to come back. But I still think that not being able to go home can mean a lot of things, right? It can mean you don't get to go back to the way it used to be. Your world is forever changed. Or you're going to be a recurring experiencer. But one of the interesting things is that if you look at the timing of a lot of these consumptive acts in the UFO literature, a lot of times they'll happen towards the end of the experience. And so you kind of have to sit back and say, okay, well, if I consume certain things in this space, I go there. If I take 5 dried grams of mushrooms in silent darkness, I go there, right?
You go there.
So is this then their way of sending us back sometimes, is to consume something over there? Because again, I'm not entirely sure. There's a physical component to this. I'm not entirely sure how physical it is all the time.
Could communion be related to this?
Yeah, I mean, Whitley talked about being given things to consume in communion. And I think just at the very heart of it, that the name itself speaks to what's going on there.
Right, so the body of Christ, I guess you become part
Oh, you mean specific? I'm sorry.
Yes.
I went the Whitley route. Oh, yeah. Well, this is a whole nother. Yeah, I mean, I think this is 100% part of this. So yeah, the act of sitting and breaking bread historically is a type of communion, a type of commingling and accepting and being in and of that space. But yeah, I would argue that the act of Christian communion says a lot more than we really think about, because you're eating, in the tradition, flesh and drinking blood. And this ties back into some very ancient, very widespread ideas. In certain indigenous cosmologies, people are probably familiar with this, but you might vanquish your foe and eat part of them to take on their power.
Sure.
Or you might fashion a cup out of their skull. It's a similar idea. And so there's an ancient trope called eating the god. The idea that by the act of consuming the divine, you're internalizing it and communing with it, right?
Sure.
Similarly, if you look at the ayahuasca traditions and their analogs in South America, there is the assertion that the medicine is at once plant and vine and drink and deity as well. So you're literally consuming of the deity and internalizing it. And so I think that something similar, at least on the motivic level, is what we're seeing in some of these stories from experiencers.
There must be something to it because the experiences are so similar across cultures.
Yeah, it's the fairy UFO thing is the gift that keeps on giving.
Is it? In
It
what
really
way?
is. in the sense that
I always thought fairies were fun little things until I started researching. It's like, couldn't be more wrong.
Okay, let me go stretch for this one. No, it's so. What Dr. Valet did in Passport to Magonia was something that I think the best observations do, which it wasn't, hey, look at this similarity. That's all, bye. Well, that's a cool thing that he noticed. No, you can continue and keep unpacking it and keep on unfurling it and finding other dimensions to it. There's plenty of stuff that he didn't mention about similarities between the Fey folk and aliens, but let's put a pin in that and sort of backtrack to what fairies are, right?
Yep.
It's tough sometimes. It really is, because I talk about being interested in fairies and people think I'm meaning something completely different. The fairies of folklore, the fairies that a lot of our ancestors, my ancestors in Scotland, might have interacted with, were never really depicted as tiny winged, effete, sprites. They were dark, chthonic, oftentimes sized like a proportion like an average human being. Great if they liked you and you treated them well. Did not want to get on their bad side. If you made a mistake, sometimes an innocent mistake like whistling, you could get punished for whistling in the wrong place, or failing to leave out offerings, which is sort of where a lot of this fairy stuff comes into with a Trojan feast as well. But anyway, just very different class of character. The fairy that we know today is children's books and Shakespearean play stagings and stuff like that. There's a whole other conversation to have about what fairies look like in witness reports now and what that says about the phenomenon, but we can go there if you want to later. But the original sort of version of that was darker and stranger. And a lot of the things that Valet was pointing out really do seem to line up. I mean, you've got stature, you've got little men in green becoming little green men, powers of levitation, although fairies didn't have wings in terms of folklore, they were always granted powers of levitation, people being picked up and whisked away to other different spaces. Fairyland reads a lot like some of the descriptions of either the rooms aboard spaceships or sometimes in the contactee literature, these other planets that people went to.
Could they read a lot like Book of Enoch and Enoch traveling with Uriel to the ship?
Well, yeah, I think it's, again, part of this multiple masks sort of thing.
Or the djinn?
Oh, absolutely. And the djinn, there's reason to quibble with this statement, but the djinn could very easily be understood as Muslim fairy analogs, right? But all these different things sort of add together, and I've completely lost track of what your initial question was.
Just about how fairies are misunderstood.
Yeah. So they're misunderstood, but then there are these other things that sort of Valet left out that I don't think he did intentionally, and he probably even saw them, but there's only so much you can put into a book. A lot of times in these older fairy stories, not fairy tales, fairy stories, which imply eyewitnesses and folk tales, you've got the smaller fairies all around, but there's a fairy king or fairy queen, and they're usually taller, much taller and lithe, and that sounds a lot like what we hear from David Jacobs. Your mileage may vary, but it's like a lot what we hear from David Jacobs about the taller supervising greys.
Yes.
There's a connection between fairies and the dead and UFOs and the dead, which I've explored recently. There's the fact that fairies came in all sorts of variety of shapes and sizes, like a Pokemon catalog, right? And that's similarly, that's what we see with the taxonomy of aliens today. Is that there's just endless variation. So it's just, you can just keep on unpacking this and unpacking this and unpacking this.
There was one researcher, I forget her name, but I think she said at one point far in the past, every fairy was a dead person.
This is something that took me a long time to wrap my head around. Is how to make that work, right? So that's the one thing that you'll run into some people when they say, oh, they know what fairies are. It's like, nobody knows. I have plenty of friends who are fairy scholars. Check out Morgan Daimler's work. Check out Simon Young's work. Even they will say, we have no idea. There are arguments to be made, and there are better arguments and worse arguments to be made, but we really don't know for sure. There's the argument that they were demoted pagan deities. The Christians came along and said that they were the angels that were too good for hell and too bad for heaven that fell to the earth. But something that Dr. Simon Young has pointed out is that a lot of these cultures, when they talked about fairies, were trying to find some way to talk about the dead, because innumerable stories involving the food taboo, people will be at the fairy banquet, they walked by a fairy fort and they're invited inside because it's opened up this one day a year, and they go inside and there are all these, and then they'll see somebody that they recognize, and it's a dead friend or a dead neighbor, and they're the one who says, don't eat or drink this because you're going to be trapped here. But that sort of mode of mechanism of metamorphosis is something that took me a long time to wrap my head around. And so the way that Claude Lécouteau, former professor at the Sorbonne, described it. He just passed away this past November. But great. He writes my favorite UFO books because he never uses the word UFO, but like, it's just great stuff. But he wrote a lot of books on household spirits and spirits of the land and such. And he described the process as you have someone who is revered by the community, a chieftain or a soldier or a priest or priestess, and then they're buried in a certain place, and that place becomes revered as their burial spot. But over time, as we are wont to do as a species, like we sort of forget and we sort of treat those connections more loosely, and it becomes sort of a spirit of the place. And from there, they sort of get syncretized with fairy beliefs as being these sort of spirits out in the wilderness. We see this really clearly, actually, in some cultures, even in the more modern era. Buryat shamans would be interred in one place and then later exhumed and then specifically buried in a new location to serve as the spirit of that place. So this genus loci idea, which is very closely related to spirits,
All right, guys, so I'm back, and now I have some food with me. I have with me a big plate of rice, vegetables, and some roast chicken. And I have a mug of warm milk and turmeric. So, yeah. So let's continue watching until I finish my dinner here, guys. Hope you enjoy the show. Here we go.
that's a fairy glen, that's a fairy pond or whatever. These ideas sort of start to merge together. And
Burial mounds and things like that.
yeah, I mean, that's the other thing. It's like so many of these
Sounds yummy.
sites that are associated with fairies. Again, I feel like I say it all the time, but in Western Europe, but arguably worldwide, are sepulchral sites. They're sites that involve burials.
Sure, I mean, the Serpent Mound in Ohio, they see all kinds of stuff over there.
Yeah, but thinking specifically to like, Ireland and the British Isles, these burial mounds are unambiguously burial tumuli, but they're also where the fairies are, just so happen to be. There are many traditions that say that the dead live inside hills. Not coincidentally, it's where we put a lot of our underground alien bases in modern UFO mythology. But there's this strong connection through that even, does extend, especially in my part of America with the Cherokee. There's a strong association between some of the burial tumuli and the tumuli down there and the Nunyanahi, their fairy variant, one of their fairy variants. So, it's just, and that's what always gets me. That's what really keeps me going is I take a look at, those Cherokee traditions, for example, and reading the association between fairy, what we would call fairies, very clearly, time dilation, missing time, taking people away into the forest, that sort of thing.
Yep. Sounds familiar.
Being associated with these earthworks. And people across the Atlantic saying the exact same thing. And look, I have to remain open to cultural contamination, right? That's always an ever-looming specter. But if not, that's what gets me going. Because it's like there's some strata of reality that we're interacting with where we're all coming to the same conclusions as a humanity.
No question about it. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about some more patterns that you found that nobody else did, specifically brimstone.
Okay. Yeah.
Be right back. So 1994, my dad has an operation, one of many. He dies on the table. They bring him back. When he comes back, he says he had a conversation with his mother and he smelled roses. Mm. And in brimstone, it's so funny because you would think, like, is there enough data to write a whole book about smells?
I got that a lot.
But there is.
It's one of those things, and this is sort of a lot of what I've done, is it's one of those things that people mention in passing in their own books, and they'll say, that's kind of interesting, kind of funny. I wonder what that's all about. Anyway, and they continue with the next story. And those are the details that always sort of make me go, well, hang on. Hang on. Let's go back to that and revisit it. What can we learn by unpacking a lot of this stuff? I think this was a similar philosophy to what the late Carla Turner had, was that, like, some of these details might be holding the key to understanding a lot of this stuff. So after Trojan Feast, went on and wrote The Brimstone Deceit, which kind of sounds like a Joel Osteen book title, but
It does.
but what do you call a book about paranormal smells, especially when sulfur appears so often? So that's what we went with, and I still see stuff today that I'm like, oh, that would have been great to have put in that book. It's just it really is a pervasive set of observations that happen in this area.
What was the first one that made you go, wait a minute?
Well, it wasn't. I'm not sure if it was a specific account, but it was probably some of those observations that John Keel had made. Because if I had a shrine in my house, it would probably be to John Keel and Jacques Vallée, right? Like, I feel like there's so much of what I do.
That's interesting because they fundamentally are completely opposite on what's going on.
Had different hands on the elephant, different hands on the elephant.
That's right. That's a great way to put it.
And the goal is to become the coincidentia oppositorum, right?
That's
the
right.
union of opposites. But I think it was some of those observations that Keel had made very presciently, that, people report brimstone or sulfur in these accounts. And there's this knee-jerk reaction, especially in, Christian America, to say, oh, it must mean demons. And it's like, well, have you ever, really understood the origins of that smell or the history of the way that smell was identified and stuff? I mean, for example, if you go back all the way into antiquity, people in the classical traditions were misidentifying the smell of ozone as the smell of sulfur. They'd say, the lightning strike, and it was the smell of sulfur. And similarly, in more recent years, around the turn of the 20th century, people were being sent to convalesce by the seaside because of the great ozone vapors in the air. And it's like, no, you're probably talking about sulfur.
Sulfur.
Yeah, so there's
hydrogen sulfide.
There's that to consider.
How about the Oracle at Delphi? Same?
Yeah, and that's sort of so whenever you establish an area to look into, it sort of starts branching out like tributaries. And one of those is the idea of things like the Oracle at Delphi inhaling certain fumes, or the idea that burnt offerings are meant to transmit the offerings themselves to the supernal realms through the smoke. That's a means of getting the offering from here to there. So there are all these things that you've just sort of got to sit with and say, well, what bearing, if any, does this have on a lot of these modern experiences? And so I really wanted to try and unpack that. And for a while, it kind of looked like I was going to get pigeonholed as the five senses guy. Like, I'm like, I don't want to write a book on paranormal touch. That sounds like
right.
That sounds like a dangerous place to go. But yeah.
What is it? What I find interesting about the smells is it's the one sense that bypasses thalamic altogether, goes directly to the amygdala, emotion center. There's no narrative structure at all. So it's culturally agnostic.
That's an excellent way to put it. And
doesn't that make it more real, the account?
Well, it not only makes it more real, I think it also makes it more ripe for hijacking, right? So there's actually an entire subset of like scent philosophy, olfactory philosophy, which was a surprise to me. But one of the things that they've sort of examined, some of these scholars, Guerrero, I think, is the one that I was looking into, talked about how we've oftentimes treated our noses as reliable witnesses, right? It passes the smell test. Mm-hmm. The nose knows,
right.
Like all these things. If you smell it, like so you can smell that something's off. And so the idea that you would be, I could make 1,000 different explanations for a trick of the light for me to see something strange. But when you've got that accompanied by something that you're smelling too, it really does put it in a place of authenticity, right? In addition to, like you said, just like jumping right to your emotional centers. Like if I have ex-girlfriends, sorry, Sarah, if you're watching this, I have ex-girlfriends that if I smelled their perfume, like I would immediately think of that person and those emotions associated with that. And if we are dealing with a phenomenon, as I've suspected, that really does like to traffic in meaning and quite frankly manipulation for good or for ill, what a tool to use.
Yes.
And
Because your memory goes right there when you smell something. Childhood.
You can try not to think of it. Like, you can not want to think of it.
Right.
And it'll override that completely. Which is kind of like, it's almost like even better than telepathy, or it's akin to telepathy, where it's like this is going straight in your head and there's no way you can not hear it or mishear it. And the smells, like, a lot of my work proposes that there's a meta-position intelligence that's in control of how it's seen and when it's seen and what it does while it's seen, which is my logical exemption for why we don't have better evidence, right?
That's kind of a valet-esque way to look at it.
Well, yeah.
That there's a structure.
Yeah, and that that if it doesn't want to be seen, it's not going to be seen. Or when it does get seen, it's a colossal fuck up. There we go. That's my F-bomb for
That's your
this
F-bomb?
show.
Now, hang on. That's George Hansen's trickster theory, is it can't be seen.
Yeah.
Is you try... And what I love about Hansen's work is he says the trickster, you try to observe it. As soon as you try to observe it, you can't. Like, that's quantum mechanics, man.
It really is. And it's not only that, but it's one of those things that it's almost like we as a species intuited that before we had the tools to sort of interrogate quantum mechanics. But yeah, it's so if the phenomenon can control how it's seen and how it presumably smells, like, what a smell to choose. So
yeah, why roses
right.
and
Well,
sulfur?
roses and sulfur. Yeah, so the book is the Brimstone Deceit, and it talks about bad smells, but there's just all smells ended up in the book. And you do see rose smells in terms of saints and in terms of Blessed Virgin Mary sightings.
Of course.
And in select UFO encounters as well. I think it was either Dennis Kucinich who smelled a rose-scented UFO? I don't know.
There was one.
I could look it up. Yeah,
there was one.
Yeah, I believe that's what it was, and if not, I'm mistaken. But it's a smell that you get from time to time. But a lot of these do have some sort of sulfur smell, and then the task there is to sort of unpack what people mean, right? So, do they mean ozone, sulfur, that sort of conflation that we were talking about? Do they mean hydrogen sulfide, which is that rotten egg smell? Do they mean sulfur dioxide, which is that gunpowder smell?
Right.
And then even things that people make other comparisons to is say, oh, it smelled like natural gas. Well, natural gas is odorless. We add methanothiols to it to make you more aware of when there's a gas leak. And guess what those contain? Those thiols contain sulfur. So there's something about this sulfur connection that I think is really fascinating. And we've so long associated with demons. But if you look at, like, for example, biblical sources, it's always been presented as a great thing, the cleansing breath of God's whenever God makes a point to cleanse something, he's using sulfur. And we know about this today, like acne medications often contain sulfur. Like, sulfur is a fumigant, it's an antimicrobial. And so, like, the fact that the devil and demons smell like sulfur isn't the fact that they smell bad because they're evil. It's God trying to cleanse them, throwing them into the lake of fire. And you have to unpack all this stuff, but hydrogen sulfide specifically, this fact blows my mind every time I think about it. We are so sensitive to hydrogen sulfide that we can detect it at 0.5 parts per billion. To put that in perspective, if I had a semi that was carrying like an oil, like a liquid semi, like oil tanker or whatever, or a semi full of milk, whatever, and you took a medicine dropper and you put 1 drop of ink in there, that would be twice the concentration at which we can smell hydrogen sulfide. So if this phenomenon wishes to not be noticed and it's in control of how it smells, it's a poor choice. So it's almost like it's designed to be attention grabbing.
Well, I mean, astronomers are using spectrography to see if there's life on other planets, right? They're looking for oxygen. They're also looking for hydrogen sulfide.
Right. And there's some of the emissions on Venus. I don't know if this has been settled since, but some of the emissions on Venus of sulfur are so plentiful and not reacting the way that they should that there's been some speculation that there's some sort of artificial generator of some of these sulfur compounds on Venus. even for me, who doesn't ascribe to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, that makes you go, huh, okay, that's interesting. I don't know what to do with that, because you would think that chemistry would be a universal constant.
Right.
So yeah, and I think that these things, again, if we are to posit that this is deliberate, and it may well not be, then it might be to get our attention, because so many of these experiences seem so tailor-made to people, relying on their personal lives and their personal symbolism and seeing sometimes dead loved ones and such. I'm also open to other ideas that, like, we're not smelling these things decaying. Like, maybe they enter our reality and they have a sort of half-life, right? They have a sort of half-life where as soon as they show up, they start literally entropying or decaying.
Mm-hmm. As a Christian, have your views changed at all, being in this space?
I mean, there's just so much cognitive dissonance every day.
Yeah.
it's weird.
Sulfur's in the Bible.
Yeah, I mean, it's so my own sort of faith journey, where I've sort of landed with a lot of that, is that Christ was a meeting point of a lot of different archetypes. Maybe the most potent meeting point of archetypes that's ever been in existence. And I don't think that, because I do run into, well, number one.
Which archetypes would you attribute to Christ?
Well, obviously the Messiah, right? I mean,
yes.
But the redemptive Son, but also the Son and the Father. There's just so many different things coming to a head in that. But the thing that I would sort of come back to is that I think it behooves Christians to be interested in these topics and to think them through before disclosures of any sort happen. But I also have to say that I've thought of the way that I look at these topics and what they might say about my own faith as sort of being like a kid taking apart a clock, right? So I want to understand how the clock works, right? And I want to get in there and take a look at the timing mechanisms and the cogs and the wheels and such and the pendulum. But even when I take apart the clock, and even if I understand how the clock works, the clock is the universe, it's not going to tell me what time is. It's not going to make me more punctual, That layer of interfacing with reality is where my spirituality comes in.
This is a nice metaphor.
Yeah, I was really proud of it when I came up with it. Because I've had to think about this a lot, and so yeah, I think that's sort of where I've been able to make peace with it, and it's so I kind of wrestle with how much and how I speak about it, because when you say that, people start drawing conclusions about how exclusionary you are regarding these subjects, right? Or that at the end of the day, I must boil down and think that UFOs are demons, and that's not at all where I land. I'm sympathetic to people who think that because they're thinking outside of that extraterrestrial hypothesis framework, and then we can have a conversation about transpersonal psychology, we can have a conversation about trickster phenomena, we can have all those conversations if they're not automatically on that sort of orthodox ETH trajectory. But that's still not what I think. I think that everything is so much more complex than we give it credit for. And that's why I've always gravitated towards that ecology of souls phrasing, is because
Sure.
I love the idea of the diversity and the richness of a bunch of different weird things that maybe we can call spirits. I don't know. Like, another dimension is synonymous with the other world, is synonymous with fairyland to me, maybe even synonymous with the afterlife. But like a rich ecosystem of different intelligences and presences all filling these niches, and oftentimes completely removed from this dichotomy of good versus evil that the Christian discussion always forces us into. The example that I use is like a tornado or a shark could really ruin my day, but they're not evil, And
Right.
I think that might be a little bit more of what we're seeing, rather than the sort of reductive binary that the UFOs or demons question always gets forced into whenever you start talking about these topics and Christianity.
Well, that the demons or just UFOs being spiritual, I'm hearing that more and more and more. And yet, and I think you might have even said this, the 2017 New York Times piece was probably a setback for UFO research.
I've thought that.
Because we're back to aerospace.
We're back to, yeah. This is something that I've noticed throughout the UFO. It's an interesting day to be talking about this, right?
Yeah.
The mediation of the conversation. My friend David Metcalf, brilliant fella, he's pointed to the fact that these narratives often get mediated. A good example that he likes to use is that in the Cold War in the 50s, I believe it was Project Moondust, was dedicated to retrieving space debris and ostensibly Soviet materials, but maybe if they came upon a UFO, they collected it too. But nobody was really talking about crash retrieval programs in the 50s when it was actually happening. And then, like a light switch in the 90s, that's all we can talk about. That's all we're talking about. And I think it would be in everyone's interest to really pay attention to what you're being told to talk about, right? So what I was perceiving prior to the release of the New York Times article, neophyte that I was, right, admittedly, had a lifelong interest, but I was only 2 books in at this point. I did see sort of a course correction in terms of the narrative, because people were talking about altered states of consciousness and all these things that like really get me going. Because that's the way I found myself to being interested in the UFO topic, was that I said, well, these don't have to be thousands of different types of craft and thousands of different civilizations. It can just be this one thing that's interacting with us in this never land, right? But that New York Times article drops and we're back, you're right, talking about propulsion systems and anti-gravity systems. And there's another form of real loss here that I think is happening, because this is a very Western European sort of way of thinking about the UFO question. There are all these cohorts from marginalized populations and from indigenous populations that don't think about this phenomenon in that way.
They wrap it in with spirituality and NDEs.
Right. So when you're talking about like hybrid programs or propulsion systems or any of this stuff, they just it doesn't, and so they feel like they're on the outside of it, when a lot of them are having these same experiences. They're just not framing them in the same way. A classic example of this is, if you look at the work of Cynthia Hind, who actually started asking the right questions in the right ways with people in, I believe it was Zimbabwe. She was finding that a lot of these people were framing this as ancestor phenomenon, and that there really wasn't a distinction between craft and occupant and any of this stuff. These things were amorphous categories where there was no real contradiction in the idea that you would have a craft come down and then turn into a human being, which is something that you honestly kind of do here in a lot of these indigenous stories. So that's something that really makes me very hesitant towards the, friend of mine, Dr. Jeff Kreppel, would call it the threat narrative that we're being fed constantly. And I'm not saying that all this stuff is sweetness and light. We know that it's not, right? My rehab trip was not all sweetness and light.
No.
But it needed to happen.
Yes.
It was necessary. And so I think that this sort of naivete of like, oh, these things are up in the sky and we need to shoot them down, we can shoot them down, I'm not sure that's the most mature way to take it. And that felt like one of those pivots and mediating of the narrative moments when that article dropped. But at the same time, it got people acknowledging the paranormal component, the idea that we were looking into things like Skinwalker Ranch.
True, but then when Luis Elizondo says this is an existential threat, I go, oh no, well, this is not helpful at all.
Yeah.
So is that narrative being constructed, or is that the trickster in the way?
It reminds me of that Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns is mistaken for an alien. They say, it's bringing peace and love, break its legs, don't let it get away.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing, that's what I've resonated so much with. If anybody listening to this picks up one book from this discussion, don't pick up my books. Pick up George P. Hansen's The Trickster and the Paranormal. And
it's a great
be
book.
gentle with yourself. Take time to read through it. Some of it reads like VCR instructions.
Yes.
I think that comparison is especially more apt now that VCRs aren't a thing, because it's even more inscrutable. But it's the only book that I've run into that has predictive power in this space.
Yes, it really does.
And that's something remarkable. And in case anybody doesn't know, George is making the argument that the trickster archetype hovers over all these phenomena. Do not make the mistake that we're talking about like a capital T trickster god or anything. Archetypes, remember, they're those dry riverbeds. They're the way that things tend to go when things happen.
So this isn't a consciousness or sentience?
I mean, you can never say never, right? But I think because of the way that he frames it, it's just if paranormal events and phenomena seem to be governed by these archetypes and these tendencies, down to, as we were alluding to with Lou, down to the organizations that study them. So the trickster archetype is liminal, guardian of the threshold boundaries. It upends the status quo. It's social leveling, so the higher brought low and the lower brought high. It's transgressive. It is playful. It is mischievous. It encodes wisdom in the grossest of spaces. P.K. Dick's insight from the trash stratum, or the philosopher's stone in the head of a toad, right? From the dross of society, you'll find wisdom and insight. Trickster figures, Hermes, Loki, Till Eulenspiegel that I mentioned earlier, Reynard the Fox, Rabbit from African cosmologies, Coyote from Indigenous American cosmologies.
Brer Rabbit.
Yeah, Brer Rabbit, yep. And
so this isn't evil. This is necessary chaos.
It's rehab.
It's rehab.
It's rehab.
I hadn't thought of that, but that works.
Yeah. And so what it does is it fulfills this necessary role. And that's one of the things that Hansen points to, is the fact that trickster phenomena, the trickster archetype, loves to self-negate. So it'll show you one thing, maybe a predictable pattern of behavior, and just when you think you've got it, it'll pull the rug out from underneath you.
Right.
It will set you up. It relishes in absurdity, which is arguably what high strangeness is, right? It's anti-structural. That's the big thing. To the Stars Academy of Arts and Science. I always thought that sounded like a Montessori school. But,
It kind of does.
yeah, but like this, it's the same thing. And like, the late Jeff Ritzmann, who was an incredible thinker, sort of saw that when that announcement was made. He's like, this is going to fall apart because that's what trickster theory says it does. And of course it did. So I don't think you can ever get out in front of this thing. That sort of anti-structural, self-negating aspect, I think, is best exemplified in the contactees, or some people who've had poltergeist interactions. Something genuinely anomalous will happen to someone, then they'll be asked to perform, and they'll have to start faking it. And eventually that leads to, oh, it was fake all along, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But that's
Uri Geller and spoon bending, or as my friend Soraya Azkath on Where Did the Road Go says, like, just because I can fake a punch in a movie doesn't mean that all punches are fake. But neither here nor there. But this idea that, like, to be, Greg Bishop, my mentor, says these phenomena are repeatable but not on demand.
that's right. Where Hansen said you can't photograph it.
Right. You can't, and if you, or you can photograph it, but you're going to get something back that's going to make you seem even less reputable, right?
That makes me think of the epigraph from Swedenborg. That
Right, you shouldn't trust spirits, and
'cause they're
spirits
gonna-
will lie to you.
they'll
Spirits
lie to you.
always lie to you. Yeah, and again, we're using these terms loosely. Like, spirits means the other, whatever that is. Like, but these phenomena seem to lie to you. It's the reason that we always have that punchline of UFOs only abducting rednecks, right? Which isn't true, but it's that idea of that sort of marginalization and disreputability that we sort of have associated with the phenomenon. So, yeah, these groups to study it always fall apart. Attempts to study it always fall apart. Again, it's partially because it's not reliable, and I, again, am proposing a meta-position intelligence. But it's also due to the fact that, like, you're never going to get IRB approval to put someone through a near-death experience.
No.
These sort of things happen. They're associated with trauma. Like, they really are. And so you're not going to do that in the lab. You're just not going to. It's like saying, let's measure tidal fluctuations in a bathtub or something. Like, it's just not going to happen. Or, as Jeff Kripal says, going to Antarctica and saying, where are the zebras? It's like, it's not, you're looking in the wrong place.
right, because there's no zebras here, so zebras don't exist.
Right, and it's also Christ in the wilderness with Satan, right? Satan's like, do this, do this, do this. And he's like, no, because that's not the environment in which
Right.
this happens. Like, you can't be asked to do that. It's why maybe if a psychic needed to predict lottery numbers to save their life, they could do it. But that's why you don't get psychics predicting lottery numbers.
That's right.
And I'm doing George's work such a disservice because it's such a profound book. It is dense and it's difficult to read through. But once you start to see that, you're like, oh, I can kind of see the way that the shape of a lot of these things, I think.
Why does the act of dying seem to be, or the nexus of dying, seem to be the center of all of this? What is it about death? Death and UFOs.
Yeah, I joke that the things that you can't talk about are what used to be sex and religion, right? Or sex and politics, sex, religion, and politics, sex, religion, and politics, and UFOs. But I repeat myself, right? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, is this where we're going to segue into ecology of souls? Because once you draw back the string on that, the arrow goes flying. And
Let her fly.
Okay.
Ecology of Souls is worth. I mean, it's 1,000. It's 2 volumes.
It's 250,000 words. Yeah, and it's got a separate volume just for appendices and endnotes and the bibliography. And I hate that it's that long, but the idea was to write a quaint little book on UFOs and death, and then it was like, to explain that I have to have all this preamble, and it just seemed like I needed to do the topic justice. I think that, to your original question, that death keeps on cropping up because we're kind of misinterpreting what that moment is, what that NDE moment is. I just think it's one expression of these threshold moments, right? What I mean by that is, and this is why I asked if we're going to go off into ecology of souls territory. I had always been haunted by a statement from Anne Strieber, Whitley Strieber's wife. They were collecting correspondence in the wake of communion, probably one of the only places that you could write at the time if you were an experiencer. And Anne was making some notes from the correspondence, and one of the things that she noted that Whitley later related was, this has something to do with what we call death. Mm-hmm. Now, what we call death, I think, is a great little haunting phrase in and of itself.
It is.
But I heard that, and I was like, well, what do you do with that? Because, again, there's what I want the phenomena to be, right? I really do want there to be fairies at the bottom of the garden. Like, I think that's cool, yeah.
But you don't want there to be little green men from Zeta Reticuli.
Well, I mean, yeah. I just want it to be numinous and weird. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, there's what I want it to be, and there's what I think the evidence is pointing towards. And there's a part of me inside that doesn't want this to be about death and about all just us and projections of us and drawing us into it. But there's a lot of evidence in that regard. So I thought about Anne's statement, and a lot of people have talked about this in passing. And I also thought about some other researchers who I thought have done impeccable work. Somebody who doesn't get nearly enough attention is Eddie Bullard. Mm-hmm. Wrote UFOs Measure of a Mystery back in the 80s, which at the time was like the most comprehensive collection of alien abductions. Made extensive comparisons between UFO experiences and shamanic initiation. Now we can unpack the problematism behind that term, shamanism specific to, Siberia, et cetera, but just shamanic figures in their communities, in their respective communities, which we might call medicine men or women, or
early religions.
Yeah, just let's substitute any culture-specific term for that intercessor with the spirit world.
Sure.
He drew a lot of comparisons between UFO experiences and shamanic experiences in terms of the symbolism, in terms of the spaces that they were going to, most notably in terms of the dismemberment that people would have in shamanic initiations.
Dismemberment?
Yeah, so there was this idea that you would go to the spirit world and you would be taken apart and put back together again better, and then come back to serve your people. Similarly, one of the scholars of shamanism that is historically the most looked at, Mircea Eliade, talked about certain traditions talking about the shamanic initiation being given by the spirits a crystal in their head to facilitate communication. You see where this is going. Mm-hmm. All very salient points. So we've got Anne and the death, and we've got Bullard and the shamanic initiation, and then you enter Kenneth Ring into the equation, who wrote the Project Omega, which talked about the similarity between UFO experiences and near-death experiences. And
I have this reading list for everybody, by the way.
Okay, yeah, it's a long
Bullard,
list.
Ring, it's all here.
And that's undeniable too in a lot of ways. They're narratives of ascent, as Diana Pasolka would call them.
Does the DMT experience track with this? The ego death?
Well, we can put a pin in that for a moment.
Copy that.
I'll get there. That's part of this equation too. This is part of my cork board. My cork board with the red yarn.
A jazz guy's riffing. I let him riff.
I'm not. I usually lose my way before the solo's done. But so tunnel. Oops, sorry. So tunnel experience, themes of ascension, of lifting up, going to certain spaces. Like there are a lot of descriptions of alien worlds that sound like afterlife meadows and such. People have seen aliens in near-death experiences. More often than not, they see beings of light, but that's been revealed as one of the more common yet underreported entities seen aboard craft and alien experiences are beings of light. So that's transferable there.
That's absolutely true.
It's Ray Hernandez's free study, his stuff that he did on that. They showed that beings of light were really common. So, like, all these things are starting to play well together. Then you do enter, see, I told you I'd get there. You do enter into the DMT and the altered states of consciousness space.
Scripture has quite a few passages about beings of light.
I'm sorry?
Scripture has beings of light.
Yeah, well, the light imagery is everywhere, all over it. My good friend and editor, Barbara Fisher, who runs the 6 Degrees of John Keel podcast, is making me work on a book about lights, and it's like the toughest thing I've ever done. But
I love it.
Love you, Barbara, but it's tough. But yeah, that's one of the things. Like, you look through Scripture, and it's just like allusions to light and enlightenment. Yeah, exactly.
It's a UFO story.
But the DMT entheogen sort of space, a lot of those were interpreted or thought of as being vectors for talking with the dead, right? To the extent that, you could translate ayahuasca as vine of the spirits or vine of the dead. And that's just one example among many. Iboga, you see similar descriptions about accessing the spirit world. Terrence McKenna said that, he thought of DMT as bungee cording into the bardo.
Have you ever tried it?
Me? Mm-hmm. No, I'm too chicken shit to do it. I
can't break through.
Well, and on the backside of recovery, I'm like, is this a really good idea? I don't know.
I wouldn't call it recreation.
No, I wouldn't either.
It's not
I
fun.
wouldn't either. But I'm sort of, again, I think it does come to me just being too scared to do it, because I have some friends who have been like, I never see fairies. And they're like, well, I can fix that for you if you really want me to. And it's like, well, maybe not. And then I start thinking about blood pressure and all sorts of different things, that comorbidities. Anyway,
But the wood elves, and I mean, it's all the same story.
Yeah, and there are allusions to people being taken apart and put together under ayahuasca by little beings. So it all starts to sound the same. And then you say, okay, well, the shamanic initiations oftentimes take you to the land of the ancestors, or at least to or past the point of death, a near-death experience, and bring you back with powers. Near-death experiencers come back with supposedly abilities of clairvoyance and precognition and all sorts of things. UFO experiencers have this happen too. People don't talk about it enough.
True. Joe McMoneagle.
These people all experience poltergeist effects. Valet said it was the rule rather than the exception that experiencers had poltergeist effects in their lives after their sightings. So we're checking the shamanic initiation box. We're checking the near-death experience box. We're checking the UFO box. We're kind of checking the DMT box to a degree. Mario Kitness and David Lukes did a study that showed that a lot of people who have used psychoactive substances have reported an uptick in things like spontaneous out-of-body experiences and poltergeist effects and such like that. And trips to fairyland. A tunnel. Like, if you go to... I had the privilege of the second honeymoon. The first honeymoon was to Blue Ridge, where I drunkenly summoned Bigfoot. The second honeymoon was to Ireland. And just to have a sense of place and to go there and to go these places and really be like, oh, that's what this is all about. A lot of these fairy forts include these subterranean passages called souterrains, which are these... It's not really known entirely what they were used for, perhaps storage, perhaps for hiding, but some of them stretch for miles underground. And so it's very similar to the idea of you reading a lot of these fairy stories, like, oh, the person went through a tunnel to fairyland. Tunnel experience to a pastoral locale. That's the near-death experience. The tunnel experience is the beam of light that the UFO takes you on. The tunnel experience is prefigured in some of the shamanic stuff as well. So it all starts to kind of play together, but then you've got to say, okay, well, are these all crossing over to the afterlife, depending on your spiritual tradition, and coming back? Because it doesn't... I have a hard time... I can do that with the shamanic thing, right? I can say that initiates are taken past the point of death and brought back, because that stretches back into classical traditions. And I can do that, obviously, with near-death experiences. It's baked right there into the name. I can do that with fairyland, because fairies have this association with the dead. I have trouble doing that with the UFO thing, and I have trouble doing that with all the altered states of consciousness entheogen thing. So I would posit, rather, that we have these threshold events, thresholds, tricksters. Mm-hmm. We have these threshold events where we go and we come back different. And I don't know what that other space is. If you really are still in 2026 holding on to materialism, that's fine. Whatever. We'll wait it out. And you really want to say that these are other dimensions, that's fine. I can meet you there. But we've been talking about it for thousands of years. It's the other world. It's Tir na Nog. It's Oz. It's Middle Earth. It's the imagination. I think it's all these things. And if you go there and you come back, you survive that ordeal, it's the hero's journey, right? You come back with these abilities that I can't explain. But if you do spend time with this cohort, we were talking about this a little bit earlier, you do start to notice these strange things happening around them that you're like, that, you know, as someone who hasn't had, I've had my death and rebirth experience, I guess, but as someone who's never had an alien abduction or a near-death experience per se, or any of these things, it's like, this doesn't happen to me all the time, and this happens to you, and it really does seem to, I'm observing this cloud of strangeness around you. And so that's sort of what I tried to do with Ecology of Souls, to answer your question 30 minutes later, is to put all these things in dialogue with each other and to make them play together, because all true narratives must reconcile, right?
They must.
And I see too much worth preserving in the work of Bullard and the work of Ring. Too many similarities to the fairy stuff and the work of Valet. I'm like, okay, well, how do these things all have to play together? I think it's the death thing. I really do. I just don't think we know what death is.
We don't know what death is.
Yeah.
And why wouldn't it be birth instead?
Well, that's an interesting idea that, you know, is sort of alluded to. If you look at, I believe it's the work of Croft and Croker, some of those old dusty fairy folklore volumes, they'll make allusions to things like the fairies would laugh at funerals and cry at births. Or there are also allusions to fairyland being summer when it's winter over here. It's a place of inversions. You see inversions. Again, that's trickster, topsy-turvy sort of stuff again. But this illusion of inversion. So that's an idea that, I mean, even Charles Fort played with this idea. You know, we are the ones who are truly dead. And
right.
He's so eloquent, and I can't even paraphrase him, but he was like, we are the ones who are truly dead. We've emerged from this, you know, we will someday emerge from this cloudy pseudo-existence into, you know, the true light of our actual lives.
I hope he's right.
I hope he's right too, and I think that he's even if I didn't have my own faith background, I think I would still say that he's right. Right. I think that there are certain hills that I will and won't die on. The psi phenomena hill is one that I will die on. I wasn't aware until I watched your interview with, I guess it was Eric, that the Daryl Bem stuff had been replicated.
Yep.
So you've got that. You've got some of Dean Radin's work.
But there's some tricksterism with Bem as well.
Yeah, I mean,
because initially it couldn't be replicated.
Right.
And they couldn't really understand it, but it has been since.
Well, and that's where you sort of invite in Rupert Sheldrake through the back door, right? With morphic resonance. So Rupert Sheldrake, biologist and parapsychologist.
That's the episode that I'm releasing tomorw.
Oh, okay, then I'll keep my mouth shut. Just watch that episode.
No.
But yeah, but yeah, it's
exciting because.
So was this possible? Was this possible until Daryl Bem broke the seal? Right.
I don't know.
For the pre-sentiment studies.
Well, now you have to talk about Sheldrake.
Well, okay, so Sheldrake's idea was that, among his many ideas, because he's done some really interesting work on pet telepathy and whatnot, but the idea that there's a thing that he coined as morphic resonance, which is basically the first time something gets done, it's easier to get done later. Rats in a maze on the West Coast, running the maze first, will have a more difficult time than rats on the West Coast, because something about the collective unconscious, maybe, of that species has learned how to maze well, right?
Yes.
So
nature has memory.
Yeah. And if you look at like sports, that seems to be the case,
it
right?
Does.
Because records are broken. It's like nobody's ever going to break this record, and then that record's broken, and the bar keeps on getting raised higher, and people keep on meeting it. But I will die on because of people like Sheldrake and like Bem and like Dean Radin, who have been, especially Radin, trying to play by the rules of laboratory experiments. That's a hill I'll die on. But the near-death stuff is I'm close. I don't know if I'm dying on that hill, but I'm definitely being like mortally wounded on that hill.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
like,
that's fair. What about the reincarnation hill?
Well, that's a good one too. I mean, you know,
because there's good research.
There's great research on it. There's University of Virginia, is it Jeffrey Long, I believe. I used to be able to spout this name off the top of my head, but there's really compelling stuff. You know, I with my boys, I was kind of hoping that they would say something to me about a past life before age 7. Also, they're identical twins, so I kind of like wanted to do those twin experiments, but no twin telepathy either. But yeah, I mean, the reincarnation thing, I think, is part of it too. You know, that's where I break with traditional Christianity. Although I think there are ways you can sort of blur the lines to make it fit. But
I think you can.
I think you can. I think you can. I mean, and just I get so tired of. I mean, I'm probably rambling, so I apologize. But I find the reincarnation stuff to be much more compelling than the criticisms of it. So I get so tired of these low resolution interpretations. It's like, well, why are there more people on Earth now than there ever have been? I'm like, well, how many waves can be on the ocean? You know, how come 5 people said that they were Napoleon at my dinner party in their past life? Well, I don't know. Maybe they'll have a 5th of Napoleon. Like, I don't know. Like, I like the idea of using the water cycle as an analog for the reincarnation process. Like, you all get dumped into a soup and then you get spread around. Yeah.
And researchers like Raymond Moody have addressed that, is that soul energy could be broken off into pieces.
Yeah.
You know?
I think so.
I think so too.
And that, you know, that might be what we experience when we meet soulmates. You know, as we see a spark of that other thing that's inside of us, or even people that you just get along with. You know, there's some people that you get along with right from the start. There's some people that you kind of don't want to be around. You know, like you.
But that's Moody's work as well. Is these soul groups, and you just hit it off with somebody.
Yeah, 100%.
And you're just going through the experience together.
I mean, you've had these experiences with people where, like, no matter what you say, they're not picking up any of your references. And, like, you have to explain all your aside jokes. You're like, well, I should have never made that joke because now I'm having to explain it. And it's just, you know, awkward all the way down. There are a couple musicians that I work with and I love them, but it's the same way. It's like, well, you know, maybe we are, our Venn diagram of soul pieces does not meet.
That's true. As a former stand-up, I've played to rooms where nobody was in my soul group.
That's very true. I bet. Yeah. So that's Ecology of Souls. I mean, so... So the idea, but see, you see all that you have to get to before you can have that UFO conversation, right?
And we're not really connecting it with death.
I'm sorry?
We're not really connecting UFOs with death yet.
No, I mean, this is just the preamble, which is why it got split into 2 things. And you mean we as a culture, or we in this room?
Really, all of it.
I mean, yeah, it's.
I can't make the connection, but I feel like there's something to it.
I mean,
well, let me expand a little bit more. We've got the narrative, the nuts and bolts, the aerospace, but I think you have even brought to everyone's attention that we're seeing more experiences that are spiritual and less that are abduction.
Right.
Like, the narrative is changing culturally.
That's what the phenomenon does, I think. The late Earl Grey Anderson, head of SoCal MUFON, said that, before he passed away, said that he was noticing that a lot of these narratives in the UFO phenomenon are shifting more towards, like, downloads, astral traveling, consciousness excursions. Structured craft are shifting a lot towards more lights in the sky.
Yes.
And I have multiple thoughts about this. One of them is that as we globalize and we lose our cultural idiosyncrasies, we're seeing a truer, more stripped down version of the phenomenon, right? So instead of seeing, I don't know, a flying chariot or a flying saucer, we just see the light that was there all along, right?
Just an orb.
Because culture is not as distinct as it once was in a globalized era.
Right. I mean, before Kenneth Arnold said saucers, it's misinterpreted. He didn't see any saucers.
Yeah, they're like batwing chevron sort of things. Yeah. But then now we're in fourth wall phantoms territory.
Oh, we can't get there. We're not there yet. We got to
people ended up seeing saucers, but
hang on.
So
we'll go to break. We'll come back to the fourth wall. But if you want to make a point, do it.
Yeah, I would just say that. So the phenomenon seems to change and adapt. It seems to continue to be changing and adapting. Even disclosure, for better or worse, is changing and adapting.
So we're done with our break. Now let's go back into the game. I'm pretty sure we are already being logged off, so I will have to. Oh no, is it? Oh, okay. 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 I don't really need the universal flashlight. Oh no, that's weapons. Okay. Yeah. Ah. All right. Mm. Don Rojas. Oh, yeah, baby. Field Trevino. All right. Baby. All right. Anyway. Let's see. Okay, where do we go from here?
Who's that Pokemon?
All right. Okay, how many minutes do we have left? 5 minutes. Okay. Well, gonna be. Oh wait. This is what's gonna happen because we have this. Because there's a bullet in there, right? Yeah. What's gonna happen is it'll mess up the aesthetics, or yeah, the gun, how the gun looks to be in general. So this one here is already good, right? So what I'm gonna do is just keep it like that, and then since the server is gonna restart in 3 minutes, let's go ahead and play some music while we are at it. Yeah. Okay, here we go. Alright, so be right back, guys. Alright, guys, so we're back. Alright. Okay. Now let's see what's gonna happen to our secondary rifle, our assault rifle. Because there's no bullet in the chamber, the secondary rifle, the assault rifle will stay as is. If there's a bullet in the chamber, then it'll mess up the whole placement of the attachment. Right. So our see, if there's no bullet in the chamber, then it's not gonna go messed up. Right, so where do we go next? Let's see here. Go find some AI. I'm thinking probably they'll be... Or no, you know what? Naturally go find... Wait, did I just see... Did I just see a smokestack? Or probably that was just the trick of my eyes. Look at all the free real estate. I've always liked this house here. Problem is, there's no water source. The only water source is the lake. But that's not, you know.
Build a well.
That, well, yeah, that could also be. If that would be nice if. God damn it! What is wrong with that dog? Just a moment. Be right back, guys.
Pokemon!
ZZ Muskaz. Welcome to my channel.
Pokemon!
Bungie72. Welcome to my channel.
Alright guys, sorry about that one. I think I forgot to remove the magazine from my gun. Uh-oh. Gotta have to update this, guys. So yeah.
Welcome back.
Yep, but now we gotta... How to say this? Now we have to update it on Steam. So let's see here. Oh, hey Evelyn, Shaggy, on Kick. How you doing? Welcome in, welcome in. Let's see here. Multi-chat. Wait, why is it not showing Kick? Or was it late earlier today? Man, I need to have like what do you call this? A text to speech for Kick. How do I do that? No, add automatic text to speech to the. Kickbot. What's this? TTS. It's not automatic. Oh man. It's not Kickbot that I want. Okay, anyway. Wow. No internet connection? How the heck? Alright guys, so yeah, I guess we need to wait out Evelyn Shaggy, how's it going? Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. Hope you are too. Anyway, guys, so I think I may have to end the stream for now. Yeah, something's going on with Steam right now, so I need to work on that one real quick. Or I don't know. I don't know how long it's gonna take. But anyway, guys, thank you so much again for hanging out with me. And yep, I hope to see you tomorrow. Alright, so let's take a look as to who we can raid out to. Just a moment.
Enjoy your rest all. Thanks again,
Silent for the
20.
20 bits again. Oh my god. Thank you so much for that
Enjoy
one.
your Eve, brother.
No worries, you too, Muska. Hope you have a great evening later on. I know it's still afternoon over there for you. Alright, let's see who we raid out to.
Run.
Sound alerts. Welcome to my channel.
For 10 bits? Oh my god. Nice. Alright. Let's see here. Oh. Let's raid out to Eri Moon Taro. She's Japanese, but she also knows a bit of English, although not as natural. Okay. So let's raid out to Eri Moon Taro. Follower or subscriber only chat. Oh my god. Okay. Well, anyway. Alright, so that's the raid
R0
message,
Nin
guys.
0 Hello Tomb Raid
And so,
Big Fish Tomb
yep,
Raid
let's go out
R0 Nin
and
0
raid-
Hello
let's go and
Tomb
raid out
Raid
to
Big
Eddie
Fish Tomb
Moon
Raid
Prado.
R0 Nin 0 Hello.
Alright. So guys, again, thank you so much for hanging out with me, and I'll see you tomorrow. So until then, you guys take care, stay safe, and have yourselves great lives. Ciao for now.